First guest this morning has just returned to us from his trip to Turkey to break down some of the major stories taking place around the country. He'll break down the latest congressional developments, the case against Dominique Strauss Kahn, and an update on the case of the tragic murder of Leiby Kletzky. Once again, we welcome back Mark Meirowitz. Mark, thank you for being with us, and I know you had a little challenge getting here this morning because of the water main break.
I made it on time.
And I know that's a major story going on right now in our borough here, and we certainly wish all of those affected, the best that they can make of the situation. Hopefully, it'll be corrected quickly. So, getting right to it, Mark. Let's first talk about your trip to Turkey. What you discovered, what you found out. What's the environment like, the atmosphere in that part of the world as it relates to the economy, the politics that are going on, and the effects that all of those are having.
Well, I went on a program to teach English to Turkish professors, and I did that for 3 weeks. It was very eye-opening, very insightful. I also had the opportunity to meet with Turkish people, businessmen, academics, people on the street. It's a fascinating, lively, bustling. I was basically in Istanbul, so I can't really report on the rest of it, but a very bustling and exciting and lively society, very vibrant. The economy is way up. Business is booming, and there's a great deal of excitement and optimism in the air about Turkey being a strong economy. In the background are the issues that still plague Turkey. During the time I was there was an attack by the PKK, by the Kurdish terrorists, resulting in the killing of 13 Turkish soldiers, which was a huge event for the Turkish people and the Turkish psyche and for the Turkish nation. In addition, the issues with Greece and with Cyprus and the matters of the EU and whether Turkey will join the EU, all these issues and the relations with Israel, some questions on where that's going to go and how that issue of the Mavi Marmara will be resolved. And also just the general relationship between Turkey and the U.S. and Turkey and Europe and so forth. So all these questions are in the background, but basically the society is bustling and lively and day and night.
Well, let me ask you, Mark, interesting to hear and good to hear about the bustling economic environment that apparently exists in Turkey now.
Yes.
Why is it so different there than in Greece, for example, that has gone through this horrible experience, near financial disaster, and what differentiates Greece and Turkey?
It's a long discussion to figure out what differentiates Greece and Turkey, and it's historical, but I'd be happy to synopsize it. I think the problem in Greece is that the economy as it is really a shadow economy. It's not a real economy. Most of the economy is kind of under the table. They really don't have a functioning modern economy. So what happened was, actually I met, interestingly enough, at my hotel some German professors, and they were complaining, we've given all this money to Greece and we're never getting this money back. So that's the feeling in Europe, is that they're putting money down a sinkhole in Greece and they're never going to get the money back. And now what's happening is that Greece has been called upon to implement austerity moves, plus sell off a lot of its assets. Hopefully they won't have to sell the Parthenon or anything like that at the Acropolis, but they have valuable assets and they need to tighten their belts, they need to work harder, and they need to figure out how to solve this problem. As far as Turkey is concerned, Turkey has been able to organize itself into a modern and lively economy. In fact, it's, I think, the 17th, 16th, or 15th, depending who you ask, largest economy in the world. So it's a much better organized society. And maybe the work ethic is stronger, where Turks are thinking, we want to make this happen. We want to build this economy. We want to put our efforts in that direction. And that enthusiasm, I think, is absent in Greece. And maybe there are cultural reasons for it, but that we'd have to delve down and to understand that. But Greece is in a pickle. I don't know if that's I don't know if the pickle is the appropriate Greek term, but they're in trouble.
They're not in good shape.
They're not in good shape at all.
Well, kudos to the people of Turkey and its leaders for apparently leading them in a path of prosperity. Staying on that side of the ocean, as it relates to an individual from the European side who is in some hot water here himself.
Yes, exactly.
Dominique Strauss Kahn, former president of the IMF, the leader of the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, who of course has been charged with with rape or sexual assault on this woman from Guinea.
Exactly.
And what is your perspective on that, as to the charges, as to the allegations that have been raised against her as it relates to her conduct, her previous conduct, what happened to her in her own native country, how it is she got here?
Exactly.
And what do you think she is looking to get from this, in addition to what she has claimed is, of course, simple justice?
Right. Well, following this from Turkey and actually reading the European papers, the Europeans are very angry about this because angry at the United States and at the district attorney's office here for rushing to judgment against Dominique Strauss Kahn, because he's a leading figure in Europe and in France. He was going to be a candidate for the presidency of France, and the feeling was rush to judgment, indict first, and then figure out later. This was kind of the headline in International Herald Tribune. So that was one big point. Actually, I discussed this issue with my Turkish professors to see what they thought about it. And it's interesting to kind of step away and see how it looks from far away. When you get closer to it, it seems a bit embarrassing, I think, for the district attorney's office to have rushed ahead without first vetting this individual. Now, the most recent story, as we all know, is that this individual has now gone to ABC News, has gone to Newsweek magazine to tell, quote, her side of the story. But the inconsistencies in her story are glaring. And bottom line is, it just appears, to be very candid, and I'm not criticizing this person or her lawyer, but it looks like they're in it for the civil suit. And I wanted to add one more point.
Yeah.
I think that the proper thing to have done was to wait to see for the disposition of the criminal case and then see whether she has the opportunity to bring a civil case. Not to try to, get on the phone with her friend in the Arizona prison and saying, I think there's a lot of money involved. And then I think the media, honestly, I would criticize them very, very much for putting her on this just to try to make money so that people and sell ads to get people on TV. I think it's inappropriate. Her story is full of holes. Let's have the criminal case proceed. Let's see what the DA says, and then do the interviews, not before. I think the whole thing is totally muddy right now. A huge embarrassment to the DA and also to Newsweek and ABC News. It's embarrassing. And the story is really, honestly, a bunch of bunk,
well,
as far as I'm concerned.
I certainly appreciate your perspective.
That's my opinion.
Whether or not it's going to wind up being a total embarrassment, or whether it's, as you put it, a bunch of bunk, is yet to be determined. As it relates to the inconsistencies in her stories, though, and whatever inconsistencies go to her veracity. I know that reports have emanated indicating that no matter what inconsistencies may exist as to other issues in her life, that does not obviate the fact of the charge that was brought against this individual, and what conduct she, of course,
I would take issue with that point, because the bottom line here is what actually happened in that hotel room, right? That's really what we're never going to know that, because at the end of the day, I don't know that, because no, not necessarily, because at the end of the day, the criminal case may be dismissed because of the inconsistencies in her own actions and the fact that she has multiple bank accounts and multiple phone numbers and conversations with all sorts of unseemly people, all sorts of stuff that the defense will bring out and the jury will dismiss the case. So the fact is, maybe it's going to be dismissed. Then we proceed to the civil case. She's going to sue him civilly for millions of dollars, right? Because this is the whole setup. At the end of the day, he is not going to testify. He's going to settle the case out of court. So he will never be on the stand. He will never testify. He will never give an interview, and we will never know what happened. All we have is the chock-a-block, these stories that she's telling back and forth, which are, if you know the Swiss cheese theory of law, there are more holes in her story than there is a slice of Swiss cheese. And so any lawyer, and I'm a lawyer also, besides being a professor, I'm a lawyer. I'm looking at this case, and also lawyers are skeptics. But you don't have to be a big skeptic here to look at this case. So in my mind, to find out what happened in that hotel room will never be divulged. All you will have is her story, a dismissed criminal case, a civil case settled out of court, and then we're just going to move on. In the meantime, Dominique Strauss Kahn, and by the way, I don't defend his behavior. I think it's pretty obvious that his moral standard is not maybe other people's moral standards, okay? That could be. But the fact is that at the end of the day, he is never going to be in a courtroom. He is never going to testify. testify in this case? Never. In the criminal case, for example, even if they brought the criminal case, he has the right under the Fifth Amendment not to testify. Most likely he will not. If there's a civil case, he's not going to testify. So we're never going to know, and all we're going to have are these interviews and all this other stuff, and we'll move on. At the end of the day, though, this individual, notwithstanding his moral lapses, was a candidate for president of France, was the head of the IMF. Now he's out of the IMF, and his political career is destroyed. And this whole story is, I think, very damaging. And again, I'll go back to the European papers and the French newspapers. The French are looking at this and they're thinking, why didn't they do the research first and then figure out whether to move the case forward? They did it backwards.
Okay, well, I just want to make one comment on
Sure,
that.
sure, absolutely, by all means.
Time runs
please,
out.
please.
And that is that regardless of the inconsistencies, and again here, I'm not sitting here as judge, jury, or DA or defense attorney.
Perfect.
But regardless of the inconsistencies of her stories and the things that have happened in her past, if the case were to go to trial on a criminal side,
right.
There is one thing that certainly can't be overlooked, and that is his past conduct. Okay,
and
the allegations that were brought against him, have been brought against him in France.
Not necessarily. Past conduct is not always admissible in a criminal trial.
Well, of course,
and in this particular
unless they open the door.
Oh no, the door is absolutely not open on that, and I would never concede that. And he is a very sharp criminal attorney, and I assure you that Ben Brafman is not going to allow all that other stuff to come in. Now that doesn't mean he's off the hook on those other cases that you're talking about. He's in deep, I don't know, Brie or hot water or whatever you say in France on those other issues. But in this case, that one's going away. It's going to be gone. It's going to be history within a couple of weeks. That's my prediction.
Soon to be determined, I guess. Let's talk a little bit about and switching gears here, not easily, but to the tragedy that occurred in Brooklyn recently. Right. With this young 8-year-old boy, Leiby Kletzky. The person that has been arrested, that has, by all reports, confessed to the crime, albeit for whatever reasons he has presented. He got scared. He panicked. What do you take on that? To that very tight community?
Well, there's a couple of takes. First of all, the big issue in that community now is the question of disclosing these kind of people to the authorities. There was a whole issue because the community organizations that maybe knew about him, but didn't report him to the authorities. They're kind of keeping it, in the house or in the community, and then they're going to change that. And secondly is the issue that having found evidence in his home of other items that may belong to other children, the question is raised whether or not this fellow is actually a serial killer. So there are a number of other questions that come out of this, but obviously the tragedy is overwhelming, not just for the community, but for the entire city. That a child that gets lost on the way home is then abducted and killed by a monster is very disturbing to all of us that are parents, but all of us that are New Yorkers. But again, the community organizations have to be more vigilant that if they know or have a suspicion to know, they should bring it to the attention of the authorities post haste so that they can kind of act on it in an expeditious fashion.
Okay, well, it seems, of course, as always, that our time runs by too quickly. I thank you so much, as always, Mark, for being with us and sharing your insight.
It's a pleasure.
And taking time to be with us under the circumstances today that you challenged.
Yes, I was very lucky to get here exactly on time, notwithstanding the force majeure of the circumstances beyond our control.
Thank you again, Mark.
My pleasure.